You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men power want? More power.
My name is Gianluca Zanna. I was an Italian by birth, and I became an American by choice. Our lives and freedoms are in danger. This is not a drill. If you're listening to this broadcast, you are the resistance.
All systems go.
Welcome to Love, Guns, and Freedom.
We're not afraid.
Another Sunday, another show. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna on K-Talks 1340 AM and also 104.1 FM. I have a lot of things to talk today. We would like to talk about some news, some very disturbing news. I also like to bring back some guests. The last couple of shows I've been focusing on the news, and also I wasn't feeling very well. So today I have a couple of great calls. Going to be different topics. One, it's a lady. She's a lady who have been somehow been in touch, at least with some of her friends, the last at least probably a few months. A few years ago, through my friend Ken from Michigan, I've been starting to learn about the reality of targeted individuals. This is not a conspiracy. At the beginning, I thought it was a bunch of crazy stuff. Unfortunately, targeted individuals, and more important, also the technology to modify behavior through different type of tools, starting from pain. Also, of course, that MK Ultra was something that is pretty much declassified, and even is still around probably. But the point is, there are many more technologies now. There is much more technology that can somehow influence our thoughts and also torture us in a way to try to obtain some results, maybe to study or maybe just for pure pain. I don't know. When I bring into my show guests that somehow they claim to be targeted, I'm just a radio host. I cannot put my hand on fire and say, yes, I know for sure that's what's happening to them. At that point, I know for sure one thing, that target individuals and the different type of weapons that somehow can try to influence or inflict pain to our brain, and these are reality. I know that. We had also declassified documents not just from the past, but also from the latest news. The Cuba embassy, the U.S. embassy in Cuba with all these sort of sonic weapons, and they're just a little fraction. Now, the guest I have today, at least the first part of the show, is an interesting lady. She's a former Catholic nun. Her name is Sister-Keri, and I would like for her to share her experience. And as I said, I'm here just as a humble host to try to bring some facts and, more important, input from different parts. It's up to you to decide what's really going on. I'm here giving the opportunity for everybody to share. One thing I want to warn you, though, if somebody brings a name or a person that somehow it is not or she's not on the show, it will be my duty to at least let's say, inform that person so they can come and have their chance to rebuke or just say their side of the story. Now, let me shut up and let me bring in Sister-Keri. Sister, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Very good. Thank you for having me to be on my show. Listen, I want to go straight to the point. Let us know exactly your story. Let's start from the beginning. You're now no more a nun, but you used to be a Catholic nun. Am I right or wrong?
That is correct. I was a nun for 14 years, 5 of which was spent in a community, St. Benedict Center in Still River, Massachusetts.
Wow. And
the other subsequent years of the 14 years was spent as pursuing a hermit vocation under the Canon 603, of which there is reference for my having been a nun in the diocesan directory in the years of 1997 and 1998 under the name of Sister Benjamin Bernor, 254 Still River Road, Still River 01467. So that is very important to let your audience know that there are records there at the Worcester Public Library, and my name is still there, and it's under Sister Benjamin Bernor.
Very good. So that's a fact. You were a Catholic nun. So right now, that probably many other millions of nuns out there have been around the world. That's okay. I mean, nothing really new. But what happened to you? Because you have a very unique story. I've been trying to also learn a little bit. Tell us exactly what happened.
Okay, well, basically, I felt the need to become a Roman Catholic. I converted in 1992, and I fell in love with the Roman Catholic. I fell in love with the Roman Catholic Church due to its ancientness, and so I became a convert to Roman Catholicism in 1993 in order to become a nun. So within approximately a month or so of my graduation out of high school, I went straight away into a convent. Now,
Wow.
because canon law does not allow someone who's on the quote-unquote honeymoon stage, once they become a convert, oftentimes people are really enamored with that experience. So what the Roman Church has is in their code of canon law, 1983, it says, that the person should wait up until the convert should wait up until 2 years in order to become a nun.
Wow.
So I found a provision in the canons that allows someone to at least become an affiliate or an oblate of the community. And so I shared that with my superior, and they accepted my promises before the 2 years. I spent some time in college and then worked on the farm most of the time when I was at the convent and kept their schedule. After that time, I finished out my college studies at Magdalen College in Warner, New Hampshire. Very, very wonderful college, very strict, and just a wonderful place to get a good foundation. So at that point, I left Magdalen College to join the convent in an official capacity as a postulant, and my postulancy lasted maybe 6 months or so. Could be 8 months, could be a year. I don't have all those facts in front of me. This happened years ago. And then I went and became a novice. And I spent maybe 2 years doing that. And I felt a deep calling for a more contemplative lifestyle. So I brought that to the attention of my superiors. And they gave me the blessing first to pray about it for a whole year. And they designated a special holy hour just for that purpose. And so I prayed for a whole year just to see if that's what the Lord was guiding me to do. And in fact, my superiors blessed me, and I left the order and, visited with them occasionally to stay in touch. But I pursued this life of becoming a hermit. And what that is someone who designates their life, who sets their life aside to pray for the church to become one with the world and one with the church through the prayers of specifically 7 times a day where you chant the Psalms. And I actually had a background in chanting them in Latin, so I would carry that on. It's called the Divine Office.
Mm-hmm.
So in the pursuit of this going to become a hermit, in the Roman Catholic Church, what's required is you have to get a firm footing. You have to become established in the world. You have to make sure you have your own health insurance and you're not a burden to the church. So in discovering how to do that, because once again, when I went to the convent, I didn't have any life skills. So I had to learn from scratch how to do all that, and I did. I actually did it.
So you had to work pretty much, they want to be sure you work. You don't just there sitting down and, just being a weight. That's what I understand, right? Like you can produce.
Exactly. You have to show that you're responsible in your own affairs in terms of taking care of yourself, and then that will also demonstrate a balance when the bishop gives you vows. So the vows would likely come after 6 years of this thing called formation. It's called candidacy.
I see. A little bit like ora e laborat, the San Benedict formula. You have to work and pray. That's the bottom line. And then they let you stay. Well, and very interesting. I mean, this is kind of pretty much, I don't want to say standard pattern, but for the nuns, especially for the nuns that they decide to live in the prayer and outside the world, so far, it's kind of a normal story. I mean, not everybody's girl's story, but for sure it's a normal story in the Catholic Church when you are a nun that want to make that type of choice. What exactly started to happen to you that you felt that something was going wrong?
Okay, well, in this process of having achieved formation, what you're supposed to do is get a spiritual advisor. And so because my spirituality was that of Cistercian, it was only normal that I would pursue a Cistercian, someone who's founded in the fathers of that tradition, to adopt that spirituality also with the vows of becoming a hermit. And there's a canon lawyer named Jean Bayer who writes about this and, gets into this in great detail. So I was undergoing formation for about 2.5 years with this priest that was given to me. His name was Father Dennis O'Brien, given to me by the second man in charge of the abbey. His name was Father Isaac Healy. And things were going pretty well. And in my desire and search for more knowledge and more truth and I would devour books, hundreds of them. I used to read voraciously on these topics. And so basically, I was invited to a profession, which is a final vows for a monk. I attended the profession and ran into a monk who actually wrote a book that I read, and I was fascinated by the topic. It's called it's Contemplative Experience. The priest who wrote it was Father Joseph Chukong of late. He's actually passed. So I was on retreat that very week, which means that my dormitory, where I slept, was at the Abbey for about a week. That they have a week retreat and then a weekend retreat. So I was there for the week. And so Father Chukong agreed to visit with me. We get together and we discuss his book, and the meeting could have gone on for an hour and a half. Now here's the cool part. Because of these memories having been many years ago, I've actually compiled a book. It's called Divine Challenge. You can get it, www.clergyvictim.com. And this book goes through the entire story on this level, because I'm going to have to accelerate the story due to the time frame that we have. But basically, this book will cover my life up until the year of 2008, when I ended up leaving the Catholic Church, but I will get into that. So for those who are interested in the book, email me, targeted to free at protonmail.com, and that's TARGETED, 2, free at protonmail.com. We apologize if emails are coming back or bouncing back, but we've had some interesting anomalies that we're trying to work out. So anyways, if you're interested in the hard copy is $100 and it has a hardback to it. If you want it digitally, it's for free on the landing page for the Divine Challenge on the website, clergyvictim.com. So now, we're going to accelerate this story a little bit from this point. So essentially in this discourse on spiritual matters, the priest ends up, after the meeting, lunging out and grabbing my left breast. And of course, I was not in agreement with this, which was also part of a problem. It was, at the time I was very naive, but I was smart enough to know that he wasn't doing this for sexual pleasure because it was rather quick. It was something he was demonstrating in terms of a control or a power, and I was not going along with it. I didn't play the game. So basically, I was devastated because my whole entire career was at stake. This ended up going into the court forum. It was turned into a criminal matter. I didn't want to do this, but the only thing I was asking at the time was that the priest no longer work with women. The priest even agreed to that. He wrote me an agreement saying he'll ask his superior that he works inside the monastery and he doesn't work with women at all. And I didn't even want to approach this matter, but having discussed this with a Sister Mary Malou from St. Scholastica's Priory in Petersham, Massachusetts, 2 months afterwards, after this happened to me, she iterated to me that, in fact, this happened to her friend over a decade previously, so I knew I had to do something about it, even though I was going to lose my entire career.
So let me spell it out. You had some advances, some physical things that are supposed not to happen between a priest and a nun. I want to be sure that I got it right.
Yes, he lunged out, grabbed my left breast.
Wow.
And basically said, don't say that, this happened and let's continue to meet. And I took his hand and I said, I'm not meeting with you.
Wow.
And I pushed him away. Like, we're done.
And so far, don't get me wrong, this is terrible. This is an assault, by the way. If you were in the regular world, everywhere, I don't care where you are, if you're still under the laws, in many countries, especially in the United States, that would be a physical assault, sexual assault, excuse me. But the point is, so far, really nothing new that somehow can happen in anywhere, but especially, I tell you, how many stories do we have of priests that they've been doing terrible things to children or other people that are innocent people. Something more happened to you. Tell us exactly from there, when did you start to realize there was more than just maybe somebody tried to single you out because you're young and a beautiful woman? What exactly happened to you?
Well, basically, the story accelerates. I ended up going through the trial. I was the witness for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. I lost the trial by design. The whole case was botched. That hit the newspapers. So though I lost in court, I won in the court of public opinion because I didn't stop fighting. And so I ended up gathering evidence, and I started to compile the evidence, and I went all the way to the Board Bar of Overseers, all the way to the Superior Courts in Massachusetts single-handedly.
Wow.
Basically, they rendered a result once again in support of the Worcester Diocese and in support of the outcome of this trial. So what I did in 2007, I researched everything. I kept going deeper and deeper to trying to find out, well, how is it that the Diocese of Worcester and the Vatican could play into politics in Massachusetts? I was ignorant, believing that maybe it could only occur there, when in fact years later I learned that there is no joke about this. The Vatican controlled, at that time, I have to say past tense, because with Trump being in office, this stuff is changing really quickly. Mm-hmm. But to illustrate the point,
so you're making the point that the Vatican controls the United States, or at least part of the, let's say, secret government.
That is correct, and there's actually testimony to this effect by His Excellency Carlo Maria Vigano.
Yeah,
he's the titular Archbishop of, I can't say that, Ulpana.
Okay.
Apostolic Nuncio. There's verified complaints I have here with the court, Strunk versus the New York Province of the Society of Jesus et al. You can find that. 09 CV 1249 RJL, filed July 7, 2009. Then you get an article in the Catholic newspaper talking about how Cardinal Sodano asked Condoleezza Rice for help of the State Department in a court case, basically to hush up these stories with the victims.
Yeah, so, I agree with that. This is part, it's been going on, by the way, since not just the last 10 years, 20 years. The Catholic Church, when used to be, of course, is still a theocracy. There is still a king. The Pope, after all, is the king. But, after somehow the creation of Italy, they gave him some sort of just temporal power, spiritual power, and they removed the army. But the real secret army of the Pope and the Catholic Church is still there through the control, of course, of secret societies and, of course, the banking system and the things that we have no clue. I think it's something even deeper, by the way, that somehow unites all these people from around the world that they have the same agenda. But bottom line, what you're saying, unfortunately, it is true. The Catholic Church, I think, still controls part of many governments and maybe still part of this United States, because President Trump cannot even control his own president, his attorney general, to to arrest or at least prosecute Hillary Clinton. So I think the Catholic Church, in some ways, maybe less, but they still have a lot of control in this, this United States. Go ahead.
You're absolutely right. How I found the truth out about all this stuff is when I started to integrate into the Masonic societies. I had direct contact with Grandmaster Leslie Lewis of the Prince Hall Freemasons in Massachusetts. They opened the lodge doors to me.
Wow.
And I got on the phone and I was honest, and he was a judge in Suffolk County, and I basically said, I'm calling you because I believe in my heart that your Freemasonic lodges were taken over by the Jesuits. Mm-hmm. And I am here to be honest, to take you back to Christ. You need to repent. You took vows and you took your promises in these lodges, and in the very beginning, when you first joined, did you ever have an intention of doing that? And he said, Sister, whatever you want from me, what do you need? I said, I need constitutions to your order so I can set up another order with Leo Zagami. This was way back in 2008. And we were going to set it up so that we could do the rite of exorcism and get people out of these vows so that they can become God's double agents inside of these secret societies.
But you remember the letter, sister? You remember the letter of George Washington? That was a long time ago, of course. Our first, maybe it wasn't even the first president, but anyway, officially what we call our first president, George Washington. He mentioned in a letter that, they were all Masons, by the way, the lodges, the Masonic groups in the United States, they were taken over by this sort of secret group of Illuminati, or what they want to call it, was some sort of a deviation, and they were trying to use the lodges to control their global agenda. They already had right there this sort of agenda they are continuing today. I mean, you're aware of that.
Absolutely.
So this is nothing new. My only point, I'm not really into Masonic, and I don't even judge people, whatever they want to do, if they do it. The problem that I have with Masonic is in general, before even we go in their spiritual, challenge that they have, because, you cannot serve two masters, and there are a lot of things in the Masonic temple that honestly, they don't make sense if you consider yourself a Christian. What I really think is wrong is that you have an oath to somehow help all your brothers above all. And when you have somebody like a judge or a lawyer and a judge, or things that could be anyway in the public service, we have a conflict of interest there, because they need to fulfill their oath, and that's how we have all this corruption and also all these things that's supposed not to be happening, I'm not talking about just a private club between private businesses. This is something now. Think about politics. Think about, lawyers, judges. How can you find justice when you have a lawyer or a judge, for example, that also is a Mason and pledges allegiance to his fellow brothers before justice?
And those allegiances are ultimately pledged to the Pope of Rome, and the Masonic, having been taken over by the Jesuits, they're ultimately their allegiances to the King of Rome.
But,
so it is.
I remember the Pope in the past. As I said, I'm not really an expert, but I've been reading a little bit. In the past, he used to prosecute the Masons. Somehow, it wasn't exactly, at least on the surface, outside, he wasn't friends of the Mason. Somehow they were trying to even. During the time when the Pope used to be still chopping heads in Rome, not that long ago, they used to have that type of inquisition and also prosecution of the Masons. Is that true?
Yes. However, that's the public policy. The private but true policy is they will support them insofar as they will be able to take control over them.
I see.
The public but false policy is we really are against the Masons, and that's not true at all. I mean, that's if you look at Eric Phelps' wonderful work called Vatican Assassins. It's a huge book, thousands of pages long.
Uh-huh.
You will see pictures of Pope shaking hands, Masonically with the top Freemasons of that day.
Oh yeah, I see also many popes that they use Masonic signs. I mean, that's out there. All you have to do is just take a look. I mean, almost all of them, and that's a fact, But now, listen, from there, we know Masonic society been going around, and unfortunately, even people with good intention that they think they're going to be part of some sort of an elite club, then they realize that maybe they're playing a little bit with their soul. Maybe, or more important, they also play with justice, because you cannot be a justice person when you have to, somehow put your brothers before justice itself. Now, from there, how do we go to a point that you found out that you were really maybe targeted of a deeper conspiracy, more than just some, horny priest that really didn't know how to keep, their zip closed, something deeper? Because I read your story, it gets way to a different level than just this average, and don't get me wrong, terrible sexual harassment that in the Catholic Church is kind of more and more common. Tell us.
Okay, so bottom line is I ended up finding out that the Abbey was operating on a whole entire level completely different than a monastery should. And I was just one example. I was the only one that stood up against them and said, absolutely not. I'm in disagreement and I'm not going to tolerate it. Whereas everyone else behind the scenes would try to fight, but when I look at the court documents, these people would either end up dead or killing themselves or something would happen to them.
Wow.
What I did was for 7 years, I started to help people secretly behind the scenes. Attorneys would approach me when I was highly active in getting the laws changed for the statute of limitations and so forth. Charitable immunity clause and all this other stuff to get things changed in Massachusetts. And that's when I realized, okay, if attorneys are approaching me, asking me to be an expert consultant on the inner workings of St. Joseph's Abbey, that's when I realized, okay, I collected data over 7 years. And all the data showed me was that this was not a monastery. These were people, there were good guys in there, okay, not everybody's bad. But the way it was controlled by those in the higher ups, meaning Father Damien Carr and the people involved in charge, they were definitely part of something that was completely against the Word of God. So then what I did was, after serving many years, I found out that the sex abuse never stays as sexual abuse, that there's a bigger plan. Kay Griggs actually exposes this several times, in that not only is Massachusetts state politics being influenced by the Vatican, and this can be seen in a case with Mary T. Jean versus the Massachusetts State Police. If you look deeply into the situation in Worcester, Massachusetts, you're going to see that it trickles all the way back into New York at the time of Spellman, and the sex rings going on there, and the death of Pope, the Pope at that time, the one that was the good guy that was around for 33 days.
Oh yes, he got killed. He died in his sleep.
Allegedly, but it was really poison.
No, he was killed. I mean, that's a fact. But yes, I know, because I had a contact that there was a nun that used to work exactly as a personal assistant there. So interesting, family, friends. Listen, you are pretty much making a statement, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is some sort of a deeper level than just some sexual harassment to a, innocent nun. It's about a sex ring. Somehow that could be connected to international sex ring, that maybe is also has a different purpose than just some pervert, who wants to have sex. Maybe there is something more satanic. What do you think exactly? Because I have my own ideas about some of these things. What is your experience?
When the stories came to me by each and every individual that would talk to me, and the lawyers and all these other people, and these were cases I had verified, it literally got into satanic ritualistic practice. Where the priest would ask for certain body fluids and have this person. I mean, it was so gross and nasty and disgusting, you'd literally want to throw up after being on the phone for several hours.
Yeah.
But when I found this out, that there's a dynamic of satanic sexual ritualistic abuse, now I'm starting to get the bigger picture. So after 8 years of serving, I realized that murder was also part of the fabric to this, and that it wasn't just the Abbey, that there's a wider circle and a network, and this was all put in place by Pope Paul VI. He called, or they call it the Lavender Mafia, where they wouldn't allow the good priests to come in, they allow the bad ones to come in, and for the purpose and design of raping hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children, for the purposes of later sticking a gun in their hands and having George Soros control our country with angry men that have been raped. I mean,
okay, let me explain. I want to be sure. First of all, as I said, every time you mention a name, this is, of course, you may have your evidence. I'm just here to give you the microphone, and I don't know every evidence you have. And let's say, for example, you mention the pastor or the priest or whatever. I wish they could come and say their story. I wish Mr. Soros would come and say their story. We don't know. I mean, at this point, for me, just the allegations. I must say that also as a basic form of, to be fair, don't get me wrong. I know George Soros is a scumbag. That's a fact. We know that he's a criminal, at least when it comes down to ruin economies around the world. And he's one of the bigger, manager, of course, the one that we can see when it comes down to implementation of the New World Order. Now, about this story that he could be behind this sort of MK Ultra or some sort of torture to control politicians? I don't know that. Could be. I don't know, though. One thing I know, though, that you've been saying a lot of names in your book, or at least in your personal, interviews and radios. And did you ever heard about any of these people that you mentioned? Like, for example, your priest that, or whatever is the name, the one that used to be in your convent. Is he still alive, first of all?
The priest that grabbed me is not alive. He died. But Father Edward John Mulaney, and I'll just name out the perpy priest. You can call him yourself.
Yeah.
They were actually the spokesperson for St. Joseph's Abbey, and they're actually enumerated in the newspaper talking about me and my case.
Wow.
And they were a serial predator. You can call attorney John Stobierski from Stobierski in Springfield, Massachusetts. You can verify it all yourself.
No, this is the idea. That's exactly the purpose of the show. More important, I want the listeners, don't believe what I'm saying. Don't believe what, our sister's saying here. Believe what you do your own research. Because, my job is to give you the opportunity to bring facts and the names, and people can do their research and verify that. That's the point. And I tell you one thing. I was reading this yesterday, a couple of days ago. There is a priest in I think it was in the U.S. It was in the mainstream news, by the way. I wish I had the article in front of me. He was found guilty of not just rape and sexual abuse, but also in his own way admitted that he wanted to kill, to create, to be part of these satanic rituals. And he's done terrible things to children. I mean, it is out there. Something came out just on my feeds, on the mainstream news feeds just a couple of days ago. I need to find it. But this is a mainstream media. And think about it. If we can catch one, this is exactly confirms things that you're saying. It wasn't just about some sexual abuse. This this devil, admitted that he wanted to do terrible things, and he's done terrible things to children. And also, he was going to he did these desecrations to the church, to the cross, things like even hard to repeat. I mean, tell you, normally I'm not exactly soft stomach, but urinating on the cross, doing terrible things. So really, it's pretty much confirmed things that you're saying. And this person was just caught, or at least, he got convicted just a couple of weeks ago. So the point is, you believe that, you have evidence that somehow what they were trying to do was more than just some sexual assault. They were creating, they have a sex ring for plan of controlling also politicians around the world and to feed their dark side. And,
yes.
And that connects to some sort of a Luciferian or satanic religion. Is that true?
Absolutely. And you can find Stephen Michaud and Hugh Ainsworth. They are authors that actually interviewed, trying to think of the guy's name. He was a mass murderer. He was on death row, and this guy on death row ended up having a conversion and to Christ. And so he only wanted to talk to someone who was real, not someone who just put a flowery interview out. So this fellow, he ends up telling the truth. He says, listen, the way I got into carving the human body and using their bodies, to killing them and using their skin as light shades, okay? The way I got to that level was first through the doorway of pornography.
Yeah.
And so there's a progression that happens in their regular sexual appetites get more accentuated because once again, a demon enters and it's not them, there's a being that's completely has their appetite expressing themselves through that person. So all of this to say is that on a sociological level, rape is a weapon of genocide, and if you look at it statistically, what's happened in our country since 50s, 60s, 70s and onward, to me, the Vatican has been passing around all these priests. To me, that's a military act done against the American people. That's a genocide. This is right here from the International Association of Genocide Scholars, Genocide Studies and Prevention, an international journal, issue 3, article 4, and this gets into rape as genocide, and that it's a tool used in military, situations, even though it's wrong against the treaties and so forth. It doesn't matter. They still use it to subjugate countries. This is what they do. When you study Alpern versus Vatican Bank, and you go into the Serbian genocide, you're going to see that they use the tool of rape in order to take over the country.
Yeah, there is now something kind of almost branching out. It comes from something that there are different levels of evil. You're mentioning something that, of course, it's been proven true. Think about MK Ultra in the 70s and the 60s. The pain, inflicting the pain, and at that point you create this mind control, and that was from the CIA, of course, and they were using also the satanic different groups. Let's not forget Colonel D'Aquino. He was an asset. He also was an army colonel, if I understand, creating this sort of a system. But now it's deeper, in my opinion, because we see that there is a bigger picture, according to my research. For example, now seems like there is a circle of a group of this elite from around the world that somehow they have now even been caught the last few years. Remember the Pizzagate, this sort of a rituals, the sex magic, this, how they call it, this sort of simulating, eating human flesh, and more important, drinking, the blood of the youth. And they find out that when the blood of the poor innocent children is also being somehow processed under stress, the hormone of stress and fear, they have the best benefits for their, devil brain. The point they believe that they're going to be healthy and younger, and maybe there is something even deeper at that point. They're really fulfilling their oath to their master. So this stuff now is starting to make more and more sense. I mean, they found out the body, by the way. I'm sure you're familiar with the story in Italy years ago. I think 40 years ago. I was a kid, 35 years ago or so. There was the two young girls, 16 years old girls, that their father worked at the Vatican, and Emanuela Orlandi, and she disappeared. Now, just last month, in one of the cardinal apartments, they found in the basement, under the wall, behind the wall, the bodies, or at least the bones of what seems like to be a young girl. There are a lot of things now that seem to interconnect the Vatican Church with the elites of the world, and this sort of a very dark rings that they start, as you said, from just some sort of a sexual, deprivation, and then goes down to deeper and deeper and more evil things like, human sacrifice, torture, and ending also, think about it, what I just told you, Pizzagate, and all these rituals that they do on our face, drinking blood, eating flesh, human flesh, and the children, the poor children, always the one that they seems to be, targeted. And of course, now we know that there is a big circle that's been exposed with the children of hundreds of thousands of children disappearing, sex trafficking from south of the borders of third world countries, and also, of course, our own children through the CPS, Child Protective Service, that after all, what they're doing, they are stealing and kidnapping children to give them to the system. The system eventually may redistribute them to evil people. Am I out of my mind, sister, or maybe there is some truth in what I'm saying with you here?
It's all tracked. All that information is tracked. It's all data. It's not a theory. It's all fact.
I know it's hard to believe. Sometimes I tell you it took me years to put all these pieces together. And sometimes I realize that the average listener says, what the heck are you talking? But guys, it's up to you. I don't care if you believe us or not. I care only that you have 5 minutes of your time to start to question what we're saying and investigate. Because you may ignore all this stuff because maybe it's not happening to you. But what if you understand that you can be a part to solve the problem? And more important, you've been given today an opportunity to do something about it. And the first thing you can do is just inform yourself and admitting that there is a very harsh reality that we are surrounded. A evil is out there. And it's our job, after we know a evil exists, to try to expose it. Even just, sharing with your friends, talking with people that also they may do something. Try to find a way that, remember, when a child disappears, sometimes he's not just gone because he got lost in the bush. Okay, this could be now part of a bigger picture that we must expose for them and for us, and also for, if you believe that you're here on this life for a purpose, maybe that's also our purpose, to try to defeat evil. Sister, please tell us a little bit more how they got after you, because you know that you got pretty much, they came after you, they tried to target you, and they probably targeted you. Tell us exactly what happened.
Okay, so basically in 2008, I realized I was in over my head. I had the diocesan official, Sister Paula Kelleher, who's the vicars for religion in the Diocese of Worcester, and she basically let me know that I was being followed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay?
Wow.
So that's when I realized, okay, first of all, this was, in 2007 or thereabouts, okay? So this was after the trial. The trial happened in 2003, and I didn't go and move forward with a civil suit, because every time I tried to move forward with a civil suit, I would receive correspondence like, here's Craig F. Iannini writing to me October 29, 2003, and he basically says, due to new circumstances, I'll not be able to provide you with legal assistance in your matter regarding a possible dissolution of the legal notice of trespass served on you by the Abbey. And it goes on, I therefore urge you to consult with another lawyer regarding this matter as soon as possible. And this was also regarding the statute of limitations. Your desire to have a legal notice to dissolve it, you should therefore contact another lawyer, etc. So basically, when I would try to hire an attorney, whether it was back in 2003 or to try to resolve this before the statute of limitations was, closed after 15 years, my attorneys ended up getting called, threatened. Anytime I tried to get this book, Divine Challenge, published since 2008, I would be threatened, or they would be threatened. David Dorr of the Spencer New Leader came in my house and told me that within 20 minutes of our discussing a time to get together and meet, he was called by someone from the Abbey who threatened his life.
Wow.
Just for my story.
Now this is, I believe you, this, the part I can understand perfectly. It's like a big mafia. I mean, the mafia, after all, they're like Boy Scouts compared to these people. This type of mafia, it's beyond nations, and more important, they use orders of powers and resources that we have no idea. So you've been, they told you, we're gonna kill you, shut up. That's the bottom line, right?
Pretty much, yeah, without saying it directly to my face, this was it. This is it. So I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing this work anymore, because I served as a victim advocate for people. Mm-hmm. And I would unravel the lies, going up to the DA's office, unravel the lies. I worked side by side with Mary T. Jean for several years. And
question, when you were in the convent, under the Catholic Church, somehow they provide you for your physical needs, you don't get paid, you're a nun, but at least you were able to live and eat and take care of yourself. After you got somehow separated, and you became back to the celibate, how you call it in English, I forgot. Just a regular woman right now. You are no more a nun, correct?
That's correct. See, yeah. When I was not a nun at the time, alright, when I was helping the victims of clergy abuse, I was pursuing being under canon law, a hermit, which meant I still had to live alone and supply my needs from my apartment.
Yeah,
okay?
I remember that, yeah. But you're just a regular lady, right?
I left the Roman Catholic Church in 2008. So
perfect.
Yes, I'm a regular lady, but I've maintained my vows to Christ.
You of course, you at that point, the church, my opinion, I don't care what you believe, you don't need somebody with a helmet, with a hat to tell you that that is the middleman between you and your God. That's really, and by the way, I was born Catholic. I laugh at Catholic. Even when I was a child, I refused to bow down to the Pope. And I got my own personal belief that we don't need to share. Now, that's not the point, but I completely understand. You can continue your belief, your values without a bunch of fat cardinals, telling you that you must follow their orders. Screw that. Okay. But now my point is, how do you support yourself? It's tough. This is, the real world, after all. You need to pay rent, you need to eat, you need to have some insurance. What do you do? Just my personal question.
No, that's good. Back then, at that time, I used to clean churches, and I would clean houses and do that on a private level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I would sustain myself. But then in the year 2008, when I left Massachusetts, because I knew I was in over my head, so I thought, okay, if I don't go on radio shows anymore, and if I just stop, and if I'm quiet, they will leave me alone if I move to Texas, you know? So I did that.
I see.
And in 2009, January is the technical day I moved to Texas, but I was still in Texas for 5 weeks previous. So from that point, I started to go into depth into studying private remedies and different kinds of law and things of the nature that you are very well acquainted with from what I've seen on your radio shows. Things like the Emergency Banking Relief Act and things along the name of you know, who is this all caps entity and what is our relationship to it. So I started to study that, and I went very much into it in great depth and started to realize successes and got people out of prison and got people out of jail and helped them win some of their controversies.
Wow.
And at that stage, that's when I started to bring in more funds, and I was doing very well. That was the time in my life I was really happy.
Wow, that's great.
In terms of finances and stuff like that. Well, then the FBI wanted to sit down and talk with me in 2012 of March, April, somewhere around there. And I sat down with them, and 2 years later or thereabouts, I called someone who had a clearance to help me find out why did they want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Well, what it was is they wanted me to be a CHS or a CI. They wanted to hire me, and they asked me the question, do you believe that the Pope owns us all through the collateralization of our birth certificates?
One second, the FBI came to you to ask you that question?
Yes.
And why they really care about what you think about it, and why you think the FBI at that point, they care about it?
You know what? At that stage, I didn't answer them. I just talked about something else.
Yeah.
It's called confess and avoid, you know?
Yeah.
And so I confessed it, avoided it, and talked about something else more fun and just stayed away from it because, in all honesty, if I could sit there and prove to them the facts that it is true that the Pope does own us all through the collateralization of our birth certificates, that, frankly, is classified information. That's classified. So if I knew that information, I would be deemed as a threat. So I said, okay, I'm not going to get into that. We're going to talk about something else. And I went.
But right now, you're admitting that you know that, or at least, you know, they know that you know. Okay.
They know now that I know, but back then I didn't know what was happening.
I see.
So later, 2 years after that interaction, that's when I found out, they wanted to hire me, and that's why they were asking me questions for about an hour, and it was very friendly. They never threw their badge in my face, and I was very diplomatic. They were very tasteful, really nice people.
That's normally a good cop and bad cop. You know, I honestly say, all you have to do, make a mistake, say you remember wrong date or your wrong name, and they can say you lie, and you lie to a federal agent, and bang, they slam you in the cage. I mean, I wouldn't trust anybody. This is not like your Uncle Tom coming to say, hey, let's have a talk in front of a beer, okay? This is something that from the federal government comes to ask you a question. There is always a reason. And it's our tax dollar. Maybe there are some good people among the FBI's lower ranks. I believe that. But the reality we found out now, at least for the first time in mainstream media, just the last few years, and I think the last 2 years with President Trump and all these FBI, top managers, that they were in front of Congress, how much corrupted this agency is right now, unfortunately. So I wouldn't even entertain a cup of coffee with these people, unless they pay for it. So
they were diplomatic, and I didn't have a problem, and I basically... it was fine. I know I didn't do anything wrong.
I know.
And, but if they had an attitude, I would have said no. And they said, well, we don't want to meet you unless you're alone. And I said, no, the agreement is that I'm going to have my two people as my friends with me.
Okay.
Well, who are they? I said, well, you're going to ask them when you meet with them. I said, I'll see you later, and I hung up on them.
I see. So it was over the phone. There wasn't in person. Was over the phone.
The phone was there to arrange the meeting, but we physically got together and met together.
I see. Now you met him in person. Okay. Now, any specific situation that you felt that maybe you were also targeted beside people following you or try to interfere with your work, also with, I don't know, technology?
Well, here it is. At this stage in the game, I can tell you there's no question that I am logged into some sort of AI algorithmic, sophisticated system where if I use my name in certain places, I'm deemed as an asset, okay, when it comes to, the Trump administration and that whole arena. I'm good, like I'm not someone bad in their estimation. But the bad guys also have their own AI systems that are tied into the bigger framework, like Google and banking and all of that other stuff.
Uh-huh.
So whenever I tried to get involved using my real name in terms of a business situation or what have you, there's always been some sort of hiccup. And that's where I'm running into issues with emails lately. And I feel bad because it's like people are trying to email me and they're making up stuff like, we've got complaints or this or that. And it's like, there's no complaints. No one ever complained to me about an email. I'm only responding to people that ask me to respond to them.
I see. Interesting. Well, Lisa, this is, I wouldn't be surprised at all. There are a lot of people that, beyond, of course, the digital world that can be easily artificially intelligence controlled, and I believe that there are names and list of names that they can somehow, it's been proven, think about now YouTube, think about how they can control algorithms in Google and somehow try to put you out of business. I mean, they've been doing that now with categories of business. If you are gun business related, I mean, they shut you down. Banks, it's proven. I have a website, ar15shop.us, that just this week on Shopify, they told us, we're going to cut you off because you sell gun parts. I mean, think about legally on top, of course. It's insane. It's insane. And so I wouldn't be surprised, of course, they can do that also with individual names. And I really believe they're doing it, by the way. Now, Lisa, by the way, we're supposed to have a 20 minutes interview. We're pretty much the whole hour. This is kind of amazing. And, that's fine. This is a topic I wanted to touch. I wanted to talk to you for a long time. And I'm glad that there is so much more, I'm sure. Please give out one more time to the listeners the website where people can get more information about you and what you have to share with them.
Absolutely. And it's clergyvictim.com. And there is now, I did a DVD called My Story From Targeted to Free, Love is the Answer. And basically that is available also by way of video streaming and DVD. But basically here's the end of my story because I'm just going to synopsize it.
Yes.
Because we covered a lot of ground. But this is a affidavit, a legal affidavit written by a toxicologist. Mm-hmm. And she synopsizes my story in the following. This was July of 2015. She says, in relation to having been implanted with nanotechnology, which is it's toxic substance. This was a military grade nanotechnology that was put in my body under the auspices of a surgical procedure. That was to remove the polyp in my nose and so forth. Mm. This is her affidavit relating to what happened to me and why.
Wow.
She said, specifically in Keri Berner's case, it was used as a bioweapon. She means it, meaning the architecture and signal engineering of the material, which is nanotechnology, military-grade nanotechnology, okay. She says, it was used as a bioweapon, chemical weapon, a weapon of mass destruction with specific parameters to give her rabbit fever, which is a biohazard, leukemia, breast cancer, and colon cancer, as well as the use of nanosilicon, CMOS, and MEMS, neurospheroid technology used to violate her privacy, to damage her permanently, and cause her death. Keri Berner was perfectly clear of this technology, and since recent tests of porphyrins, other tests pending as of the date of this affidavit, has returned to show a specific presence of nanotechnology composed of hexacarboxyls that are specifically used to make porphyrin nanotubes used in hexagonal waveguides as reported in the report. And she goes on to the date. Then she says the other analysis report, special request analysis dated June 6, 2015, were reintroduced back into her system, that she never gave permission for this, that the use of it was for torture, terrorism, and hate crimes reasons against her due to Keri Berner's unswerving faith in Christ without adherence to the Catholic faith tenets.
So we almost out, Keri. This was an affidavit by a doctor?
Yes, Dr. Hildegard Staniger, who's a toxicologist and
Wow.
a leading expert in bioweapons.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. This is very interesting. As I said, I know for many listeners that are new to this, they think this is like a bad sci-fi movie. Unfortunately, I wish it was true. I tell you, I don't know. I didn't see this document, but I tell you, if you say that there is this document, I want to tell you there are many other cases that I heard that it's happening. So have an open mind, people, please. Check it out. Go on their website. Like right now, just to confirm what we were saying, it's on mainstream news. I found the article. I sent it to you via Skype. Priest who said that he urinated in communion wine was attracted to Satanism, get 25 years for child porn. Just go Google this article. Reverend Thomas Foucher, a retired Idaho priest, once claimed that urinated in communion wine at least once at the church, was sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole for what investigators said the most disturbing child pornography case they ever seen. I mean, this stuff, it's real. And it's beyond just some sexual pervert. As you said, the whole goes down, down, down to something that, at the end of the day, it's a battle between good and evil. That's all I can say. We look at outside just the main puppets, the main, actors. You think they are maybe just some corrupted politicians or some, big corporations try to create an extra, whatever. No, it's more than that. The money is just an excuse. Power is just an excuse. At the end, I really truly believe what they want to control. They want to control our souls. Sister, we're at the end. I appreciate you so much. One more time, your website.
It's clergyvictim.com, and for the rest of that report I was reading, the reasons why I was targeted is because I revealed that the monastery was in fact a CIA front, and it goes all the way back to the man who's buried on that property.
Wow.
His name is J. Peter Grace, the head of Mind Control Ultra and Mind Control Delta. So you can go into the military-grade nanotechnology, the tab, I think it's like the fourth one down, and you'll be able to read the report.
Here we go. That was sister-keri. Very interesting interview. As I said, please do your own research. Do not trust what I say. Do not trust what she says. And anybody that we mention on this interview, you're welcome to call me, email me, zanna@zanna.us, and please come on my show. If you had to say, hey, maybe Sister Keri, she was wrong, or she wasn't no accurate, or maybe she's just saying lies. If you believe that, come on my show. I will be happy to give you the microphone. All right, now, I didn't talk about anything today but just this. It was kind of more than I expected, but that's fine. I think it's a very important topic. I need your help. This kind of information is not something really you can go around and look for sponsors. So please, go to www.zanna.us, ZANNA.us. You can see what I do. You can download any of my songs, and of course on Amazon, and my erotic poems book, and maybe some other things you can find on my website. I appreciate your support. I really do. God's willing, I'll talk to you next Sunday. Ciao.